Back to the Horseshoe Inn. We are not in South London. We are, in fact, in Central London, and I keep telling them to change it, but they keep not doing it. It's very frustrating. But don't worry, because not only am I here with Kevin O'Sullivan, my old bucker from Los Angeles, California, but we are now joined by Laurence Fox, the coolest man in Britain. Laurence, welcome to the show.
Looking pretty cool, I'd say.
Yeah, and smoking as well.
Solidarity
smoking, drinking.
Claire.
Yeah, tell us, what's going on with Claire?
Claire Fox got in trouble for smoking, you see, because she's not allowed to smoke.
You're not allowed to smoke, even though it's legal to smoke.
Not in your own home as well.
In her own home?
You mustn't smoke. It's bad.
What happened? Did she get reported?
I think she got reported, apparently, yeah.
I mean, there is a problem, isn't there, with people in this country? There are people who enjoy freedom. There are people who enjoy liberty. There are people who want to be able to make a choice about what they do. And there are lots of other people, it seems, that want to report people for doing stuff.
Yeah, they want to...
What's going on? I mean, it didn't used to be like that in Britain.
Well, it's that thing of, don't solve your own problems, solve someone else's.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's much easier that way, isn't it? You can
tell the thought police to get it sorted.
I mean, seriously, I do think you hear stories like Claire Fox. We're going to talk a little bit in a minute about Twitter, some mysterious handle called Twitter Engineering, telling us all the new words we have to use. We're not allowed to say words like blacklist for obvious reasons. That has to be allow list. And I just think all this stuff is contributing to an increasing climate of fear in this country. We're all getting scared to say what we think.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the more racially aware, anything that we are aware is just going to make everything worse for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, Laurence? Because you kind of, happily moving along, doing your thing, acting, getting roles, filming. I listened to you on Kevin's show talking about that great 4 or 5 months in Mallorca filming White Lines, which sounded idyllic to me. Suddenly you go on Question Time and you become... the pariah of all pariahs. And I mean, you must not have imagined that was going to happen.
I didn't imagine it was going to happen, and then I thought it was quite funny, actually, because I got so much grief for what I thought was a fairly sort of all-right thing to say. And then you've got the Maxine Peaks of this world who have their conspiracy theories. It's like, come on, darling, we'll get you back onto prime time BBC.
No, that's all right.
Yeah, but anti-Semitism's fine.
Yeah.
Sensibleness.
Also, wishing the Prime Minister dead is also fine.
Oh,
anything that revolves around
slagging off, very virtuous.
Anybody that wants to slag off the Tories, have people lynched for various reasons, but anything that you say about what is considered to be a controversial subject, I mean, what has it been like for you? Because I mean, you've been off Twitter for a while, you're back on it now, happily. I mean, I just felt, and I'm not just saying this, I just felt really bad for you. I just thought nobody deserves this kind of vitriol. I get quite a lot of it on Twitter. Yeah. I've done my own kind of version of getting a bit silly on Twitter. Things happen, but sometimes you just can't quite believe that you switch on your phone and there's literally thousands of people wishing you dead, telling you that you hope that your family's got cancer. I mean, it's a really nasty, toxic, horrible, ghastly place, isn't it?
It really is. But then, that's the problem with people that don't have an argument, isn't it? They tend to just attack you personally, as Thatcher and Reagan said as well. I've got quite into Ronald Reagan recently, and he said...
Reagan was great.
There's a problem with our liberal friends is they're not ignorant. They just know so much that isn't so.
That's very true.
Yeah.
You tweeted, I think this week, that... because of your bold and brave stance, standing up for free speech, that some of your friends' businesses have been attacked by your political enemies.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say which business it is. It's charity. It's a friend of mine's charity, and they've 2 ambassadors have left because they are associated with me, vile white supremacist racist that I am. Can't help it.
This is the thing that I find extraordinary, that if you don't say Black Lives Matter, or if you say that all lives matter, suddenly that's a racist thing to say.
It's a very weird world. I was thinking yesterday morning when the England cricket team were going, we're going to have Black Lives Matter on our shirts, but we don't support Black Lives Matter as a movement. And I'm like, well, why don't you put on Raise the Mary Rose or something as well? It's like, what's the point of you doing that? So now, in order to show my solidarity with the Jewish community and people that just aren't into neo-Marxist cults, I have to turn off the Formula One and I have to turn off the cricket. And I'm like... Lord, What's going on?
Yeah, I know. I mean, you might as well just watch the football. Oh no, that's no good
No,
because nobody. I can't watch football with nobody in the stadium. It makes no sense to me.
But
There's
don't you
no
feel
war
that?
when they're done on
I mean, sorry to harp on and sound a bit depressing, but I just feel there's something really sinister going on at the moment. That there's this great horde of people who are clearly enemies of free speech, and if you don't say or hold the opinions that they approve of, then they try to ruin your life. They try to get you sacked. That's the first thing they say. Sack them, fire them. I mean, you've suffered from trying to get work since you stood up for what you believe.
I've got a lot of people, when I go into the Laurence Fox search bit on Twitter, there's lots of people going, hey, Netflix, you know that he's a white supremacist racist, please don't hire him. And
But the troubling thing is that some of these companies will go, hang on a minute, and they'll have a meeting.
Well, they'll run a mile.
And they'll go,
actually,
we have to be very careful now. We have to be very careful.
I think corporate cowardice is at the heart of this.
You know as well as I do. I mean, you'll know that, obviously, I mean, I don't know what these meetings are like, but I imagine a meeting at Netflix will be, let's commission a series, who'd be perfect for that. Let's get this director, let's get this guy in it. How about Laurence Fox? Well, it could be difficult, and then they'll just go for somebody else.
Well, I mean, I've sort of had to come to the conclusion that unless things change, I might not get an acting job because people are super sensitive, as well. And it's only young people.
Yeah.
It's not people of over 35, 40, that you can still have a grown-up chat with them.
Yeah.
But young people are so intellectually fragile.
Yes.
They cannot
Do you think, I've got this theory, right, that because we've all got such nice lives and we relatively don't have much to worry about, and I include in that the kind of, the sons and daughters of the rather well-off who tend to find themselves on Extinction Rebellion marches, they got nothing to worry about. So they're suddenly now worried about stuff. So they worry about the climate, they worry about the planet dying. People are going to die. Right. Well, they do. That's what happens. People do die.
Yeah.
Then they worry about the fact that, the far right's going to be running the country, that Boris Johnson's going to be selling off the NHS to Donald Trump. And you go, hello, none of this is happening. It's all happening in your head.
It is, but it's a concerted drive and it's a war on our culture.
It is.
That's the bit that I don't like.
Yeah.
It's a war against British culture, and I'm a sort of old-fashioned nationalist when it comes to that. I think that the nation state is a really good thing.
Yeah.
It creates good laws and it creates good order, and we get great things from it, like the National Health Service and democracy and elections and stuff. But this attack on the nation state is really bad. It's so easy. I was walking down the road with someone I really love, and we walked past the squat, which was being demolished. And they said to me, you see, that's your metaphor for life. Look how easy it is to knock that whole thing down. But how difficult is it to put brick on brick on brick on brick and build it up again? So these little social justice warriors think, we'll tear it all down. But they didn't give me an answer of what they're going to replace it with.
Well, they also don't think about what the end result of what it is that they're asking for could be, because the end result, and I had this conversation with Nigel Farage, it's all very well calling people racist. It's all very well allowing the Black Lives Matter people to tear down statues, but they might turn up at your house one day and decide they want to burn it down because you're a white supremacist.
Yeah.
And that's where it starts to get really difficult. And
Doesn't
when the
mean
police are
anything
too
anymore.
busy kneeling down to them to actually come and stop them doing it.
And I'll tell you who
Then
else
we're
is
in a really
kneeling down
bad
to them
place.
is the government. I mean, we've got a Tory government, we've got a Prime Minister who's got an 80-seat majority, and I think the majority of this country are desperate for him to take a stance about all this nonsense that is happening, this minority of people who are trying to shut anyone down who says anything that they don't approve of. That's what I think Boris should start to talk about and start to do something about, because you've got a nation who I think are getting increasingly frightened. I know I am.
Well, I feel for the police, actually, because I think if there were strong messages from up high, then the police would feel confident to, not retaliate, but to enforce the situation. And in terms of statues, there's going to be at least half the people in this country who think you can't just tear that statue down without a democratic process taking place.
Right.
But they're being allowed to do this in the name of virtue. And it's like if Boris or someone in the government turned around and said, that's not cool, we're going to do this properly and slowly, and if you're going to deface our history and our culture, then you're going to have to reap the consequences of that.
I mean, I was encouraged by the fact that Boris said the other day that he was not in favour of tearing down statues or taking down statues, because one, it clearly doesn't make any difference anyway. I mean, they took the statue down, I've said this before, about East India Dock, some guy called Milligan, who I'd never heard of, who apparently was an owner of a slave plantation in the Caribbean.
So many of those guys were 200 years
But,
ago.
who also, because when you think about trade in those days, it was all about shipping things from one part of the world to another, and part of that shipping business involved humans. It was just the way it was. Now, of course, nobody's going to go, let's go back to that, even though there's people right now in Mayfair with Filipino slaves in the basement, cleaning their house for them and probably being sexually abused by Saudi Arabian millionaires. Nobody cares about that. Nobody cares about the fact that the Chinese have totally enslaved an entire part of their country, population-wise, because they happen to be Muslim. No, we don't want to worry about that. But, we've got this entire business where this guy, Milligan, was torn down. I'd never heard of him, but he was there.
Spike.
Not Spike, no, he's in...
I told you I was ill.
He's in Winchelsea, one of the greatest things ever on a grave, right?
Yeah.
No, this guy was there because he was a significant figure. And you put a statue up in those days to people who were significant. It doesn't mean you supported everything that he did, but you remember who he was because he actually made Docklands.
And
we
are effectively saying, why didn't Edward Colston, the Bristol slave trader, realise that 300 years after his death we would disapprove of his career?
Well, I think we're also missing a trick on the whole statues thing. It's not about tearing down statues of slave traders, it's about tearing down all statues, all memorials to our culture and our society, and judging people in that with our modern, loose little values that we've managed to develop, that our forebears fought for. It's not about slave traders, it's anyone. They'll tear any statue down.
And those of us who have our reservations about, for example, the Archbishop of Canterbury's bold plan to vandalise Canterbury Cathedral, we're accused of being sort of fans of the slave trade. When people say, well, we're against slavery, who the hell is for slavery?
Well, there are some people that are quite for slavery.
I've been asked to point out that I must qualify what I said about the Filipino slaves. It's well known in the Middle East, in parts of Dubai, in Saudi Arabia, in places like Bahrain. The guest workers, as they are called, are treated appallingly. The people who are dying building Qatar football stadiums are slaves, okay? They are definitely slaves. The people who are very wealthy in those parts of the world, who also have very big houses here, will import their slaves when they travel, because that's how they live.
We're all anti-slavery, right? That's the vibe.
Exactly.
We're all anti-slavery. Why is it not just assumed that on whichever side of the political argument you're on, you're anti-slavery?
Right. It's like when you read people, going back to Twitter, when you read people's Twitter profiles and they go anti-poverty, pro-NHS, and you go, yeah, probably. Yeah, why do we have to say that?
That's another thing I wanted to say about Boris and his various ministers and their rallying speeches. His alleged Churchillian speeches to the nation always include, we're going to be doing a lot of climate change stuff. We're going to be building green aeroplanes. We're going to deal with mental health issues. Now, I'm not saying that these aren't...
By the way, can I just say, I'm not getting on an electric plane.
Yeah,
I'm never getting on one.
Well, I agree with that.
I mean, if you tell me that this is a plane that flies with electricity, I'm going, no.
Yeah, but if it's a really good plane?
No, not doing it.
You don't want a plug-in plane, mate. But the fact that he feels the need to always insert this woke stuff into his speeches is at the heart of the problem that we have now. That a conservative prime minister is frankly afraid to be a conservative.
Well, Michael Gove met with Extinction Rebellion, didn't he?
Yeah. Yes, and looked lovingly at that 16-year-old kid, Greta Thunberg.
Greta, Saint Greta.
Yeah. She's got a bit quiet lately.
She's a kid.
She's a kid.
No, apparently she's not a kid. They say that you can only be a kid if you're doing something wrong. Right?
Oh, I see.
Then you're not responsible. She's very brilliant and intelligent, therefore she can't be treated as a child.
How dare you?
Saint Greta. I mean, but it's a laudable claim, right? She's trying to clean up the planet. Who doesn't? Again, who doesn't want to clean up the planet?
Yeah. Right.
It's like you can't just assume that people on one side of the political argument don't want to clean up the planet, love slavery. It's like,
we're pro-pollution.
To be fair, I'm not buying Lewis Hamilton's method of cleaning up the planet, which is to talk about not eating meat, but then drive around in a Formula One car and fly all over the world with about 1 million Pantechnicons to set up Formula One everywhere in every single continent.
You imagine the Jewish contingent of the design faculty and the pit lane crew who are sitting there going, okay, so you're supporting absolute anti-Semitic Marxism. in your thing. I'm sure your intentions are good.
No.
But at the end of the day, you think this is not going to be a holistic place to work.
But do you think, Laurence, that this is all going to pass? Actually, I do. I said about.
Well, I don't think so.
No, I know
Unless we're
you don't.
careful.
But you're by nature a pessimist, right? I don't know why you're even on this show, because we don't do pessimism in the Independent Republic, right? It's true. Here's the thing. I said that the whole march, I mean, there is another march, I think, planned for today, but it's kind of going off into the background. Nobody's really taking any notice. There's not much violence going on anymore. Even the BBC have acknowledged that actually wearing a Black Lives Matter badge is probably a bad idea.
They banned it. They
Yeah,
banned them now.
I know.
I did a few tweets at them. Do you endorse this message?
Yes.
I saw that.
Careful. And so, my feeling is because partly these kind of woke, millennials particularly, have got a very short attention span. And pretty soon they'll move on to something else,
Yeah, I think it's a very noisy, kind of pointless thing. And also, we have to approach these things with good faith. So you have to go, for example, with slavery, you have to go, do you know who stopped slavery? Sorry to say this out loud. It was a lot of white people. Sorry to give you a load of shit about it. But a lot of white people fought to stop slavery. It wasn't just...
And it was Britain. We were the first country in the world.
You've got to look at things fairly and evenly. It's not just like, white people are the worst thing that ever happened to the world. It's like, okay, fine, we've done some wrong things, but we're also done some good things.
It's also worth pointing out that there's an awful lot of people who are still wanting to come to one country in the world to live in from all sorts of other countries, and it's Britain. There's a reason why they don't want to stay in France. There's a reason why they don't want to stay in Germany. There's a reason why they don't fancy Italy very much. It's because we in Europe are by far and away the most tolerant nation in the world, really, and I find it really quite objectionable that anybody tries to say that that's not the case.
Well, you and I have both lived in the States.
Yeah.
And if you want to know about a racially divided country, go over there. Every city has the areas where the black community live, the Hispanic community live, the white, and never the twain shall meet.
Right.
This country, I've lived in a few countries around the world, and this is the most racially tolerant place, I think, on the face of the earth.
Well, I mean, and all of the polling and all of the data says that that's true. So when these people start lobbing words out like systemic racism to me, I just go, there's no low-hanging fruit left, is there, mate? So what you're going to do is you're going to turn around to the culture that we have all worked, and our grandparents, our parents have worked so hard to build, and you're going to go, not only is there is obviously individual racism from people.
There's always going to be racists.
But you can't sit there and denigrate the culture in that way. It's like, how dare you?
It's actually insulting massively. By the way, can I just say, your Mancunian accent in White Lines is pretty damn good, by the way. I mean, I'm not somebody that knows the North terribly well.
Well, that's not a compliment then, Mike, is it?
Well,
because if you don't know the North,
but what I can say is I'm very good on accents, and your Manchester accent is brilliant, I'd say.
Well, I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah.
I went and spoke to a few Mancunians about it, so it was lovely. What a great job!
Amazing.
Hired by a Spanish dude who he didn't speak English, so he just went, I believe his eyes.
Yeah.
So that's how it was done.
Did you
So
say
series 2 of that, they have to hire you.
Well, yeah.
Come
let's
on.
hope there is a series.
That's got to be
there
done.
will be a series 2.
Well, I think it's been quite successful, hasn't
Massively
it?
successful.
You said an interesting thing, I think, to Kevin when you guys were talking on a previous show, that in Spain, because I think you were saying that, there's no kind of real hero figure. Everybody in the show is kind of pretty horrible.
Yeah, they in White Lines, I think they show the complexity of people. Nobody is sort of black and white.
I think you said, did you not, that in Spain they take a very different view of the hero and villain thing, which I thought was really interesting. That they don't care that people are likeable. They just want to watch interesting characters.
Human beings with all their flaws and complexities. There's a problem as well in modern. I find it with modern films. I'm literally turning into my dad. I don't watch old modern films anymore, and I need to see a flawed, vulnerable male lead in a film which has a male lead who's the last time that was done really well was Die Hard. I reckon. It was just like he's either he's pissed or he's killing.
His marriage is awful.
People.
Yeah. Do you know what? I've got my 13-year-old son who's in there somewhere inside. I made him watch with me Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House, which is one of the most fantastic old movies. Cary Grant, moves from New York, has a place built in Connecticut where it all goes horribly wrong. It's funny, it's sad, he's pathetic, he's brilliant, he's got a very strong wife who's a very strong female character. And I think the film was made in like 1948 or something like that, and it's actually fantastic. Every single member of the cast is brilliant. And you're quite right. I mean, I'm like you. I find it very difficult to watch new films without thinking, you can see what they're trying to do here, and I don't like it.
I like the female versions of Ghostbusters and Ocean's 11. I mean,
does anyone
why?
watch that? But also, female characters used to be so strong.
Yeah.
And now female characters are just proto-men.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you're like,
they're
you're like-
superheroes or something, right?
And it's just like, this femininity and this masculinity, and they've come and attacked us for that, haven't they? They've gone, you're toxically masculine, and I want to take this opportunity to say I am masculine,
Yes.
and I love it.
Right.
So,
well, listen.
there you go.
It doesn't do it for me, but, whatever
Come
turns
on,
you on.
Mike.
Now, let me read you this, right? This is from Vince. My choice this morning was to watch the Formula One practice or you and Kev at the pub. Hashtag no contest. Hashtag unlucky Lewis.
Oh, bless Lewis.
And this is the thing, that in the end, all of this kind of wokeness will do away with sport. Because, you can't any longer be imagine George Best trying to exist in this current world in which we live.
The
where
Meister General, George Best.
Yeah. Footballers now have to be woke. They have to be able to be embracing.
Take the knee.
Yeah, they have to take the knee. Can you imagine? I think you've said this before on Twitter. If one of them playing in a big game between Manchester City and Aston Villa didn't want to take the knee, can you imagine what the row would be?
But imagine the crowd if they were taking the knee and there was a crowd in that stadium.
Yeah.
Because also this war on our culture, that's a war against every single person that goes and watches a football game. It is. It's
well, we had Johnny Gould, who's a big Aston Villa fan, on the show last week, and he said if they had crowds right now in football stadiums, can you imagine what the chants would be like? Because they would not be the woke style of chant. They would be very much.
You've done very, very well, very well. You played well when
Very
yet
nice
you
goal.
lost.
Yes. That ain't where we are with football supporters, I'm afraid. That's never going to change. But let me ask you, Laurence, just a personal question. You've got a family, you've got kids. That must have been tough for them as well, because to see you kind of having all of this vitriol sent your way, and to wake up, and I know what it's like to wake up in the morning with that sort of hole in the pit of your stomach because everybody's attacking you.
Because you've sent that tweet that's gone.
Well, I have. I've done it.
Yeah, me
and
too.
it's not nice. How have they coped with it?
They're really good. I was speaking to someone the other day at the school, and they said that the teacher ran in and removed all the papers from the thing when I was in the height of it. But the great thing about kids is if you raise them well, you teach them to work out what they think, and you challenge their thinking. That's what you do. You go, if they turn up and go, Donald Trump is a racist, which essentially every child says.
Yeah.
It's
because they're told that by the teachers.
Well, not necessarily by the teachers. They're told it by the other kids whose parents and whatever. My kids, I just kind of go, it's cool if you think Donald Trump's racist. Why? What evidence have you got for that? So I'm trying to teach them critical thinking so that they can work out in their life what they think, not what someone else tells them.
No, listen, my daughter, very amusingly, works in the media, and she and I don't agree on absolutely everything. She's not. I don't regard herself as right wing for a start, but she's certainly not quite exactly.
Yeah, she's
right
not
now.
exactly Karl Marx, your daughter.
She's not, no. And it depends on how many glasses of wine she's had.
She should be pretty right wing.
Yeah, she can be.
Yeah.
But she posted a thing, which was an interview with a guy from Wall Street, because she had to write a piece for CNBC, who she works for, about the fact that Wall Street is not very black. But they found this black chief executive of one of the big banks who wrote a piece or was interviewed by Vanity Fair. And he was talking about how, terrible it all was, and how, he could have been George Floyd, he could have been murdered by the police, despite the fact that he went to private school, despite the fact that he went to university in Stanford or something like that, and ended up as a very high-flying, very well-paid millionaire banker. I commented on it on Facebook, and she rang me up the other morning to say, Daddy, I'm really sorry, but I've deleted your post. And I said, all right, that's fine.
You're cancelled, Daddy.
You can, But this is the world we now live in. I hadn't said anything terrible. I just said, well, maybe this guy could have helped some of his fellow, black bankers and made them as successful as he is. But he obviously didn't bother because, in fact, he was too busy making his money and he was too busy getting on with his life, which is fine. I don't expect him to do anything else because we're not treated like that. You and I are not sort of approached and thought to be as one just because our skin colour happens to be similar. We don't all think the same way.
Such a tiny part of who you are unless you want to make it a big part of who you are.
Exactly.
Morgan Freeman was right. Stop talking about it. We're going to create a generation of the most racially aware children, and it's going to be so bad.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have, you can take a child of a racist and you can educate that child away from its racism, but what you can't do is hyper-racialise everybody, and you're putting racial relations back decades.
Right.
In the case at the moment.
I mean, you're a dissenting voice. I think probably me and Mike are as well. I mean, what I think all these sort of leftist woke people don't realise, the Guardian readers, are that they are the establishment. We are now the rebels, if you see what I mean. Yeah. But it seems to me, Laurence, that you've taken a conscious decision, despite all the flack that you take, to continue being a dissenting voice, come what may.
We need dissenting voices, right? It's important for culture. It's okay. I've got no problem with someone disagreeing with me. Absolutely. None. Disagree with me.
Yeah.
And we can have a chat. But what I can't do is you get into really bad arguments with people where it starts from the position of you're a racist. And also, if you keep calling people racist all the time just because they don't agree with you, what happens is, further down the line, someone who is really racist comes in. Yes. And then you're in real trouble.
Well, I worry as well that this whole kind of current dissenting voices thing that's going on is actually making people more racist. It's
Definitely.
making
of course it is,
white people who were not in any way thinking about that now thinking about it.
Yeah,
and they hate it.
I mean, hand on heart, Mike and I give Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, a hard time.
The middle finger?
Because we think basically because we think he's rubbish, hopeless mayor.
He also refuses to come on my show. He goes on any radio show at all, apart from mine.
But only in the last...
Anyone. If you start radio show
I can't
tomorrow,
imagine why, mate. You're always so nice to him.
Yeah.